conclusion of your book? I mean, did the main hero Mackenzie overcome all his pain, all his sadness, and what he got at the end?
The question is, at the end, does Mackenzie overcome all of his pain, all of his sadness? There are certain parts of our pain and our sadness that will always stay a part of who we then become. Okay? We are not going to get over everything. It just is not the way it works. By the end of the book, he has gone through a transformational process. He is a different person by the end of the book than he was at the beginning of the book. No question. But it doesn't mean that everything is now perfect and wonderful, and life is still life. We live in a world where there is sadness, but the baggage isn't as intense for him as it was before, because he's dealt with his own heart, right? And now you can deal with things out here differently than when you're still stuck in all your stuff. So there is a definite change and definite movement, very clear. But everything is not a bed of roses, to use that idiom, after, and by the end of the book. So, again, I didn't want, and they lived happily ever after, This is not a fairy tale. This is about real life. Because these kinds of things happen in real life. Loss and pain and tragedy and hurt. Things beyond our control, sometimes things that we cause ourselves and we bring. And so I didn't want a nice, neat package. And it's not. But it's definite resolution with regard to a lot of things. Yeah.
I have a question maybe more personal than about the book. You said that you have 11-year healing process.
Yes.
What does it mean? What it was?
How much time do we have?
No.
3 years.
A lot, for some of us, it would be nice if we get to the place where we say, I realize I'm a mess, and therefore I'm going to get some help. And we get a counselor, and we let our friends in. Some of us, we won't do that. And we actually have to, our lives have to blow up. And mine blew up. And mine blew up, well, and it's because I was a good performer, my survival skills are pretty in good shape, but it just kept me from healing. All I did was perform. And I went to 13 schools before I graduated high school because of my parents moving. And so I know how to say goodbye, but I don't know how to build a relationship. And anytime somebody starts to get through your defenses, for me it was a thin layer of perfectionist performance that covered up an ocean of shame. When they start poking down through that and up comes the shame, you run away. Well, you move. Or if you're religious, you hear God call you somewhere else. Right? And so there's just different ways that our defensive systems work. And so mine all came crashing down, my facade came crashing down January 4th, 1994. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's very specific because I know exactly what happened. Because at that point, when the facade comes down and all you're left with is all your shame, you have to make a decision whether to kill yourself or to face it. And mine came through a phone call from Kim, my wife. And she called me on the phone and she said, I'm sitting in your office waiting for you. And I know. That's all she said. I'm sitting in your office waiting for you and I know. And what she knew at that point, what she had found out, was I was in a 3-month affair with one of her best friends. And that just destroyed my facade. And at that point, I had to make a choice. Because what are you going to do? You're going to run away? Because what had happened was when you have this hole inside, and you think you find somebody that now can fill that place, but this other woman, I didn't let her in there either. You know, I just infatuation is just you loving yourself through another person. It's not about the other person. It's just, you know, you think that that person is what you think you need, and so it's all about you. It's not about them. And true love is about knowing someone. Infatuation is about not knowing someone. In fact, if you're infatuated with someone, as you begin to know them, a lot of times all of those emotions, everything else begins to disappear. Because real love is based on knowing, not on imagination. So I'd gotten caught up in this, totally my fault. And so at this point, when Kim says I know, I have to make a decision. Do I face her? And my only other choice was to kill myself. And I've been suicidal much of my life because of the damage inside my heart. But I never told anybody. Nobody knew. And to this day, I don't know how I made it across town, and I drive in to my office, and she's already torn the place up. I mean, literally, you know, wrecked the place. She was furious, with every right to be furious. And Kim comes from a very large, healthy family. You know, they're Minnesota, North Dakota, salt of the earth people, and they're very healthy compared. I'm from a little religious family. We hide everything. We lie about almost everything, you know. And when we get together, we have to have an order of service, you know. But Kim and her 5 sisters are called the Force. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but it's like, you know, they are a power to deal with. And so I walked in, and Kim she just rips into me for the first few hours. And I say to her this: if we're going to do this, I have to tell you every secret I have, because secrets have been killing me my whole life. And she said, bring it on. It took me 4 days to tell her all my secrets. 4 days. And at the end of those 4 days, she said to me, I will never believe another word that comes out of your mouth the rest of your life. And I believed her. And I went to the yellow pages in the phone book, and I looked up a counseling service that deals with sexual abuse. And I walked in, and I met a man named Scott Mitchell, who became a counselor. And for the first time in my life, I said to another human being these words: can you help me? Can you help me? And he said, yeah, but it will take 1.5 years. I said, I'm in. He said, yeah. Everybody who sits where you are, they always say they're in. But after a few months, right before it gets really hard, you'll bail. You'll jump. You'll quit the process. And I said to him, you don't understand. If I can't find some change, there is no reason for me to even live. And I said, I don't even know. I won't even be able to make the decision on when I am done this process. You'll have to tell me. I'm here until you tell me that I'm done. And we worked hard. And it took him and I 11 years to heal. 11 years. But see, I grew up in a religious environment. We didn't know anybody could actually come to healing. You know, if your stuff happened to show up, we just kicked you out, which made everybody else really want to tell what was going on in their lives. You know, so it was all about hiding, and religion does that. It makes you hide. You know, and it reinforces that. And so, my 11 years was a lot of hard work, and it got really hard. You know, because suddenly you have to look at all the ways you do what you do and why you do them. Because just even this simple thing. As a child, you learned certain skills that kept you alive. At some point, those skills that kept you alive as a child become the very things that keep you separated from relationship. They are self-protective. And God doesn't come in and say, I'm going to take these skills away from you. At some point, we have to open our hands up and let God take those skills away. But they're the very things that kept us alive. It's not an easy process. And a lot of it, I had to go through a transformation about who I believe the character and nature of God was. And that's why God comes differently. Because even Orthodox theology, and I've got theology training, even Orthodox theology says God's not male or female. You know, the imagery doesn't define God. It's there to help us understand the nature and character of God. And so a lot of what I thought was true had to be absolutely, totally rearranged. And I never thought Kim would ever heal. But at that point, there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't heal myself. Why would I think I could heal anybody else? And, you know, it took 11 years. But we're healed. I mean, absolutely healed. And she would tell you exactly the same thing. 3 years ago, in a circle of friends who all know my history, because we didn't hide anything. When I said, I can't have any more secrets, that meant we did not deal with this secretly. Right? It just, everybody knew. And she said to a group of my friends, our friends, who all know, about 3 years ago, she says to them, she says, I never thought I would ever say this. It was all worth it. It was all worth it. The kind of devastation and the kind of hurt. I mean, it was awful. And the kind of pain that it brought into those relationships and the kind of damage it did. But over an 11-year period, we watched absolutely amazing things take place and transformation take place. And I am not the same person I was 20 years ago. You know? And that's why the book was written after that 11-year period. And so the book is written out of healing, not part of the healing process. And I think that's partly also why it's as powerful a book as it is it reflects that healing process. Does that answer your question? You have to understand, I'm an ordinary human being. I am. You know? This didn't happen to me because I earned this, you know, or, you know, I won the favor of God or something. This is grace. The love that my wife has for me and my children have for me is a grace to me. You know, it's a gift. And I know it every day. It's a gift. So I'm glad to participate in what's happening around this book, but this book has added nothing to me. If it all went away tomorrow and I was back cleaning toilets, I'd be fine. Because my identity is not in this book. It's not in being an author. It's not in being a writer. Anything you put your identity in that can be taken away from you, it's just a matter of time. And you have to find your identity somewhere other than that which can be taken away from you. Or else everybody becomes an enemy. You'll end up spending your life competing, comparing yourself with other people. Whatever. You weren't designed to be anybody else. And this is part of the miracle of being a human being. You are incredible. Incredibly and intricately made. And you matter. You matter. Yeah.
Did you read a lot, like all your life? What's
Yeah.
your favorite source maybe?
I wrote a lot. And again, it was more, for me, it was an avenue to try to get the pain from the inside out. So, you know, my early stuff's very dark. But I've read books. I have a wide variety of things that I like to read. From science fiction to heavy theology. You know, I'll read somebody like Jacques Ellul that nobody reads, or Kierkegaard that nobody actually reads, and just talk about him. And so Dostoevsky or whatever, you know. And I read Orson Scott Card, Ender's Game stuff, which is science fiction. And but C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, all these